What if a picture taken from a NATO pilot's plane showed a huge scar in the shape of a boat high up in a mountain in Turkey, far from any water? No one could agree on whether it was just a trick of the rocks for decades until scanners started finding layers of dirt that looked like decks. Could the Ark be hidden in this ridge? Don't click away yet, because we're about to go inside the mountain and find out what's really there. The photograph that wouldn't die. Start with a map that doesn't have much on it. Eastern Turkey. High ground. Ridges that fold like waves that have been frozen in stone. The hills have been shaken, and the slopes have been peeled back for a few years now. In 1949, a Turkish army plane flew over this damaged country as part of a normal NATO mapping mission. From inside the plane, all you can see is rock, snow, and dark. After that, his camera picks up a shape that doesn't fit. Not a circle. There is no crack. A long, narrow shape that looks like the shape of a ship. The film dries. The picture comes to life. People start to think of the quiet mountain as the spot where a question showed up. It's a few miles south of Mount Ararat, which people who live near the Big Cone call Agri Dagi. The Bible talks about the mountains of Ararat, and this is right nearby. There isn't much air around, and the ground looks like it could hide anything. The rock formation is now called the Durupınar Formation. The ground is sloped so that rain and melting snow run off into ditches and fans. It's not on the peak itself, which is important because weather and gravity have shaped this land very clearly. Still, this line in the rock looks different. It's very long. It's not very wide. One end is pointed like a prow. As you look down at it from above, your brain would say 3 words. That's a boat. Newspapers pick up the picture. A single frame turns into a wave that goes through languages and countries. Some people see the frame as proof. For some, it's just erosion at work. There are more and more arguments. Crews walk in. The skin of the hill gets scratched up in places. Pictures are taken from the ground up. There are claims. Answer to counterclaims. People with hope, worry, and long road trips are drawn to the formation. The shape stays the same through it all. Winters take a bite. Summers dry it out. Even though the form drains, shrinks, and settles, the silhouette always looks like something else. Take a look at the body to understand why that sketch works on people. It's stretched out like a big melon, but the sides are straighter. It looks like a bow sticking out of the water because the narrow end bends up a bit. The edges aren't as smooth as you might think for a simple mud fan, and the bump along the edge can sometimes make it look like a hull stiffener. Nature can lie about geometry. The layers in a mud flow can be stacked and then broken up into clean lines. Slides can break up rocks into pieces that look like plates and ribs. But from nose to tail, this whole thing has a single form that can be read. That's why the picture keeps coming up when people talk about Ararat. It is the quick yes that your brain gives you before it asks you a hard question. The 20th century brought a lot of people. Some of them are adventurers looking for a myth. Some of them are researchers using the tools they have to test a claim. There are a few trenches dug, but not as many as in a full, modern dig with limits and open data. Heavy stones with holes in them also get a lot of attention in this area. They are straight up and have a big hole near one end, making them look like big earrings. One group calls them drogue stones, which are like sea props that a big boat could drag to keep its keel steady in rough water. Another group says that these stones are devotional or Byzantine, and that they have later carvings on some of their faces. They also say that they have been found in towns and fields, not in a sealed ship. The argument shows why the situation is more important than any one thing. A stone that doesn't have a date or a layer is like a story that doesn't have an end. So why wouldn't Durupınar leave when so many other pictures of the Ark disappeared? It's there because it's where symbol and land meet. In Genesis, a boat is parked in the mountains of Ararat. From above, the mountains look like the shape of a boat. The place is very dramatic. A child could easily draw the line with their finger. In a moment, their minds link them. But for decades, the tools were what made people want to do it. People argued about forms and how they felt. Ground-penetrating radar and electrical resistivity, which don't go through the ground, were either not possible or not used very much on that hill. There was mostly talk, travel, and a few small cuts in the ground. Things changed. Tech caught up. A new team with a clear plan took to the slope in the year 1999. The Noah's Ark Scans Group, led by Andrew Jones, did not come to follow a story. They came to see if a pattern worked. The ground should behave differently below the hull shape if it hides a real structure. Not on top, where wind and rain can trick you, but below, where rocks and dirt are honest. Geophysics today lets us send signals into the ground and listen for the echoes. Radar can bounce and map changes that happen quickly. The resistance of a substance can show where it stops or conducts electricity. Soil labs can look at what's inside a form and compare it to what's far away and outside. Those tests might be able to find it if there are layers in the right spots, clean lines where walls and floors would meet, or chemistry that looks like wood and pitch that has been decaying for a long time. Those tests should also show that the formation is just rock that has been pushed and raked by water and force. Do not look up. Keep your eyes on the ground. Everyone took a look at the picture. The rocks below will tell us if this ridge is smart geology or hidden carpentry. Now get closer, because the next part opens the hull and goes through the signals line by line to find out what the Earth says is inside. What the scans see. Think of the slope as a book that can't be opened. The scanners are a safe way to read it without damaging the pages. Ground-penetrating radar drops radio waves into the ground and listens for echoes when the signal hits a sudden change, like when it goes from loose soil to packed soil or from rock to rock. Electrical resistivity sends a small current between probes and makes a picture of the ground's resistance or conductivity. For example, dry rock resists, while damp finds conduct. Buried timbers and holes can stand out. Both ways don't damage anything. There's no need to make holes or move artifacts. Just let physics return patterns that hint at edges, layers, and empty places. Plan poles are life or death. A grid of lines is used to make sure that the same spot is crossed more than once. So that shallow and deep signals don't blend together, depth windows are set in small steps. To improve the picture, areas of high interest are given less space between them. A neat sketch can be made by anyone, so raw sections are important. The real test is whether the original radargrams and resistivity slices show the same breaks and shapes when they are run by another analysis. A cool picture can be turned into reliable data with clear coordinates, lines that are see-through, and saved instrument settings. From the scans, the team can see that inside the boat-shaped image, there is a pattern that keeps coming back. The first part is a stack of 3 wide bands that run along most of the length. Even though they're not perfect, the pancakes stay together better inside the line than outside it. That repeated space is known as decks on the team. There is a long, thin stripe that goes from the top to the bottom of the band, like a hallway. It sticks to the center line and stays on course even when the slope changes, which doesn't happen very often when all you have are random rocks. Longer cross lines that start at about 90 degrees spread out along that stripe. They show up at regular times that make it look like walls. That sounds like rooms that open off a central hallway in ship language. Depth is another clue. The best traits are visible from a few feet up to about 30 feet, after which they become less clear. That makes sense for a body that was covered by slope wash and then became stable over time. It also makes it more likely that pockets will never be fully filled. In the data, those show up as low-density patches or spots with a high resistance. There might be small holes there where beams used to be. They could also be places where rocks have broken, animal caves, or dried lenses in the colluvium. A void is just a blank without a careful trench or core. When the readings are layered and averaged, the shapes start to look less like noise and more like intention. There are arcs that mirror each other, forming a kind of ribbing along the sides of the formation. The curves are spaced in a way that's almost rhythmic, not random, not jagged, but orderly. The data points fall into a lattice that reminds the team of framing. To an untrained eye, it might look like the remains of a buried hull. To a geologist, it could be the signature of stratified sediment layers folded by tectonic pressure. Both explanations fit the math. Both can draw lines across the same grid. One strange thing stands out. The material inside the hull area seems denser than the soil just outside it. Yet the boundaries between these materials are clean, like something once separated them. That sharp contact line isn't typical of landslides, where debris blends together. To the team, it's a sign worth testing further. Samples taken from surface erosion around the shape show traces of iron oxide nodules and manganese concentrations that can form around decayed organic material, or simply from the mineralization of local basalt. The data whispers possibilities, not conclusions. Then, in one cross-section, a pattern appears that makes the technicians fall silent. Beneath what they're calling the deck line, several strong reflections show up, stacked and evenly spaced. It looks like a grid of beams, all running parallel. The team calls them stringers. Could those be